Hey everyone, welcome to Your Friend in Furnishing. Today we're joined by Brooke Lestikow, founder of DB Dens. Brooke's really known for creating thoughtful, livable spaces that balance style with real world hospitality. We'll get into that in a little bit, but she's truly in this for the love of hospitality and creating unique guest experiences. And that really comes across when you talk to her about the decisions she's made for her business. We're going to talk about what actually works in a space and creating great guest experiences, what doesn't work, and how to design spaces that people don't just admire, but they truly enjoy staying in. I was just talking to Brooke before we hopped on, and her rate of five-star reviews is incredibly impressive. It's like over 99% are five-star reviews. One four-star review, which for those listening, you know how incredible of a standard that is. And so there are going to be lots of nice tips and how you create incredible experiences. And so welcome, Brooke. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to get into it.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the property. Tell us about DB Dens and how your business started.
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I was in a completely different field. I was in education. I was a teacher for years and then a director of a school, and I loved it. But a combination of things, I had 2 kids in a short time span. COVID hit, and my husband took over his family business. So we felt as a family there just needed to be a little more flexibility. So anyway, I resigned from my education job, but I still wanted something that I could do from home and that interested in me. I've always loved traveling. As long as I've traveled, even little trips in Colorado, I was the researcher on Airbnb, Vrbo. I loved finding cute places. I've always cared about design and details. So this has been in my wheelhouse. And yeah, just sort of, I can't exactly remember the exact timing, but something just led me to just take a course of how to get into this world. And then from there, things went really fast. I learned what to do, how to do it, found a realtor, and then Woody Creek Den was our first purchase. So, and Elk Creek came shortly after in October 2022.
I'd love to understand, you got your first experience and then 6 months later you went right into your second experience. Were there any sort of, in the learnings in between, were there any learnings around the approach to furnishing or design where you're like, okay, this is working super well at the first
Mhm.
property, so I want to bring this over to the second? And were there any things from the first property where you're like, okay, that didn't go so well, so we're definitely going to take a different approach for the second property? I'd be curious if there were learnings
I
in between.
It was so short. Woody Creek Den actually did come with some furniture. It was a new build, but the builder had put some furniture, so like the couch, the bed frames. I still had to do a lot. Elk Creek was like a totally blank slate, nothing in it. So that's with Minoan, the timing of Minoan, that's what saved me. And so I think with Woody Creek, I probably just went a little more basic, like listening to podcasts or looking on Reddit or whatever of what do you put in an Airbnb? And then with Elk Creek, I think just more intentional because in the in between, I went to a conference, I was talking more and in Facebook groups about design. So I think my brain just started thinking more intentionally with Elk Creek Den.
Even looking at, like, the showrooms across the 2, like, you can see in
Mhm.
Elk Creek, there's a good spread of purchases across different, like, brand partners, which always just shows,
Mhm.
like, intentionality. It's like, "Okay, I'm gonna, like, really go in and find, like, the perfect piece that fits in here." I'd love to hear specifically with Elk Creek, like, how did you approach the furnishing? It's overwhelming. I mean,
Oh my
furnishing
gosh.
property from scratch, especially, I know you mentioned you live 2 hours away. That's very
Mhm.
common. And so I'd
Yes.
love to, yeah, how did you approach that?
Yeah, I'm really proud of the design and that I did it myself. I don't come from a background though. I'm not an interior designer. My mom has really good taste and taught me, and there's a little bit of naturalness in there. Honestly, if I had to do it again, I probably would hire an interior designer just because they just they know measurements, they know all the small details to really think about that I didn't. And also just time, the amount of time it took me was nuts. Here I was like trying to find more flexibility and I was working so much. So that would probably be what I do different. We made it work. I got everything shipped to me in Denver. And then my
Mm,
husband's business, they have some big box trucks. So we would
yeah.
just do loads up there. What was neat about Minoan was finding, brands I never knew. Article, I had never heard of Article before, and, I have multiple pieces from them, all of which have lasted really well. Like, durability's been awesome, they look good, they feel good, so that was great too. Because before that, it was like Amazon, Pottery Bar, your typical go-tos that everyone knows about, but, it was really neat finding these new brands and then through just conversations and again podcasts, and I'm a big researcher. Like, I'm really good at researching and going down rabbit holes. So with some of the brands on Minoan, I would like deep dive into them and talk to people about them. So that was how I went into Elk Creek Den.
But I do understand, I think the designer sometimes the benefit of the designer isn't like you just said, it's not just like, "I need it to look nice." It's like there's
Mhm,
so much project management and,
mhm.
um, furnishing even like a two-bedroom from scratch, like, you're ordering, like, upwards of 300 items.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
it's like
nuts.
yeah, it's a lot, and,
Yeah.
going through the Elk Creek Den, we talked about this, but the views are just I mean, it
Mhm,
really feels like you're in your own world sort of out
mhm,
in nature, but there are a lot of really nice touches in the property that feel
mhm,
like, I think even in the living room, the furniture you chose, like, you're
mhm,
sticking with a lot of these, like, like, earth tones, these, like, greens and browns that
mhm,
feel really, like, perfect, um,
mhm.
and then what I thought was a really nice touch is the always pan, um
Mm, mhm.
like our place stuff.
Yep,
Like, when I travel, I like to cook. It's, like, a
mhm.
relaxing thing,
Yep.
and I get really frustrated when, like, the equipment is, like, gross or dirty or, like,
Mhm.
um I think that was, like, a really nice, thoughtful touch. I'm curious if that has that come up with guests at all, or is that sort of like an unnoticed luxury maybe?
No, my kitchen is talked about a lot.
Oh,
So, again, my properties are, especially Elk Creek Den, are very remote. So, Elk Creek Den is about 25, 30 minutes off the highway and, about 45 minutes to the nearest grocery store or town. So, I had to think about that, of people are going to either be driving a lot or they're really going to be cooking here. So we
oh,
really
yeah.
have to be intentional about the kitchen. So yeah, I do get a lot of comments on the stocked kitchen. I've done our place. I currently have all clad, which I got through
Yeah.
Crate and Barrel with Minoan. Trial and error because you have even as much as they're used in 4 years, they're bound to be replaced. So just kind of experimenting, but yeah, I think that's something I really try to do is really be thoughtful about the kitchen. I think about, you're hosting people for Thanksgiving. How can you make it feel as close to home as possible? So having like a nice serving dish, having like nice barware, and stemware, just elevating it. So that, yeah, I would say that's a big thing I hear in my reviews, which I'm glad to hear.
That is such a good point. Yeah, because we hear about, cookware and kitchenware, I think in church councils is often overlooked. And the one
Mhm,
area where we hear hosts talk about, no, you have to invest is in like midterm stays. So it's like, well,
mhm.
someone's staying for a month to like 5 months, like they're going to use the kitchen. They're not going to eat out every night.
Right.
But it is also for properties that are more remote, if you're like
Mhm,
20, 30 minutes away from a restaurant, like, there is
mhm.
much higher chance that kitchen's gonna be used. I think going to the unreasonable hospitality or even, like, any hospitality book, like, any moment is an opportunity to delight or disappoint. I think
Yes,
that you do create this sort of moment where they're like, "Oh, this is really" a lot of guests are potentially using nicer cookware than they have at home,
for
in your
sure, for
city.
sure.
So, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
like, that's just, like, such a thoughtful is it more expensive? Certainly, you could have
mhm.
saved money in there, but, I think these are, like, the sorts of things that get you this incredibly high hit rate on reviews is you've really
Yeah,
thought about this stuff
yeah.
through.
Yeah, and, at first, especially with Woody Creek, like, when I first did, like, Amazon Basic cookware, but after some time and when I got a little more money, like that's when I invested. So I think it's a reminder to new hosts, like the investment up front is huge. And I think you do have to prioritize what's most important and potentially you can't do it all. But then as you go and hopefully are making some money, that's always been my thing. It's not just like set it and forget it. I'm always reinvesting. I'm always trying to elevate. And so things like cookware over time, yeah, I did, go to Minoan and I was like, okay, I'm going to be done with the Amazon basics and, go to all clad and, nicer. Cause I think exactly it's that small touch that stands out.
It's so funny you say that because I actually went to a conference like last year and did a presentation on this. But when you look at hotels and you
Hmm.
look at their revenue or RevPAR performance, like it goes like this. It's like it's low. They do a renovation. It goes to the top of the
Hmm.
market, and then there's this slow decline down, and then
Hmm.
they do another renovation, and it shoots back up. And this
Hmm.
idea of like always upgrading, it allows you to stay in this top tier,
Hmm.
because right after you do renovation, you're up to date. You have the
Right.
cool new stuff, and then if you
Right.
wait, it doesn't take long. Like trends
Uh-huh.
change. How quickly like the millennial gray became millennial gray.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
and I think just staying on top of that and you're right, it's a big upfront investment, but then making the little investments like
Yep,
every a couple times a year, it is
yep,
just a nice way to like stay on your game. And I think that's a
mhm,
really good tip for a
yeah,
host because so often people will get complacent, and it's like we're doing
mhm,
really well, and then suddenly a
right,
year later, they're like, "What happened?" It's like, well,
yep,
like you said earlier, new rentals popped up around the
yeah,
corner, and they
right,
they furnished it 6
yep,
months ago, and
right,
things have changed. We talked about kitchenware a little bit. I'd love to spend time on like 2 or 3 product category deep dives. Are there certain categories where you focused on like we're going to invest here? Like, there's
mhm,
always a balance with aesthetics and ROI, like
yeah,
not infinite budget. I'd love to like hear maybe category or if there's specific categories where it's like I'm uncompromising on the
mhm,
quality here versus certain categories
mhm,
where you're like, I think it's okay if we
mhm.
like
I
don't
mean,
put prices adoption.
definitely my outdoor spaces were my big investments.
Yeah.
I'm in the Colorado mountains, so when people go to the mountains anywhere, and at least I know in Colorado, I think most people are filtering for a hot tub,
Yeah.
they just want that. They're either in the winter, they wanna go ski or whatever outside, and then they wanna come home and do the hot tub or the sauna now is the big thing. And then in the summer, they wanna be around the fire pit. They wanna, that cool mountain air at night, the sun sets, like, they wanna be around the fire pit, the grill. So those were kind of my, like, non-negotiable. I used Polywood, which has
Yeah.
been phenomenal. Like, again, another brand I never knew about till Minoan, and now I even have some in my own home because it just it's such good quality, and the elements up in Fairplay are harsh, it's, like, between harsh sun, snow, although not this year in Colorado, but snow, wind, rain, like, they're tough elements, and my Polywood furniture looks, like, brand new. I got a fire pit from them too that is in phenomenal shape, so love that, and then the hot tub, and then obviously the sauna is a newer addition. I got that a year ago at almost exactly at Elk Creek Den, and I've actually seen my numbers, my occupancy and revenue increase a bit at Elk Creek from that. So yeah, I think my outdoor space was by and large kind of from the get-go because I got hot tubs immediately at both and then invested in the, patio design. That was probably my biggest focus. I think another area that, might not be as obvious, but I think that can stand out. And it's not a huge investment, but like your bathroom, you can go into even just a really simple bathroom that isn't anything special, but if there's like really good towels, if there's nice soap, nice lotion, it just elevates like the whole experience. And that's something I notice when I go to rentals. It's like it's a really nice rental and then the bathroom, like the towels are crusty. They're like stained from bleach. It's like suave, yeah, shampoo. It's fine. Like, of course, I survive. It's not that big of a deal, but I think it's just one of those areas that even in a simple condo or whatever is just an easy place to elevate. So we use public goods. I want to experiment my own, you guys, since I started, you have so many new brands. So I'm excited to like keep experimenting. But towels and all of that. I think that's important.
I think totally. I think that's a common thread through hospitality, whether it's restaurants, like restroom is like almost like a sacred place, and
Mhm.
it's really obvious when it's neglected. Okay, I want to get into some rapid fire questions, if
Okay.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Um, and these are all going to be product specific. What
Okay.
is one product that you think is wildly overrated?
I think too much tech, high-end tech. I think there's a lot of really cool tech products and opportunities coming out, but I think you have to be really careful. Like, I don't even have that much tech in my home, but the top 2 questions I get are on my fireplace remote, which I
Mm,
find pretty simple, but, apparently it's really complicated, and then even the sauna, and I feel like I have great directions, I have a video. So, it's just one of those things as a host, you're catering to an array of people that are tech-minded or not, that care or not, and so I think you can go too far with it.
I think that's a great observation. As a person who loves tech, I've even
I
found myself.
know, it's hard.
No, but even I'm at places and I'm like, "Wait, what are these 3 remote," like,
Right.
these remotes all go to different things, but I don't, so I think that's actually a really solid tip, but we do see, we have lots of products that are very tech
Mhm,
forward, coffee machines or tech forward,
mhm.
what you name it, and we certainly hear sometimes in the feedback, like, it's just too much for the guest, like, we have to,
Yep.
we almost need a full card just to explain this machine.
Yeah.
I think that's a
I used to have nicer coffee machines, and I am down to a, like, Crate& and Barrel, all-clad, regular coffee pot
yeah,
because I was getting too many questions, they were breaking, and again, my places are so remote that, like, if you don't have your coffee working, you're
yeah.
SOL or you're gonna have to drive, so sometimes I think simple is more, as a host.
What about one product category you think people underinvest in?
It kinda goes back to, the bathroom or the sheets, like the basics, nice towels, nice sheets, those high touch points that, people are gonna be frequently touching and feeling. I think you need to find a brand that you love, that you like, that works, and then also know you're gonna have to, even if it's a high quality brand, you're still gonna have to replace it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, don't pick something that you love, but don't fall too much in love with it where you're gonna be heartbroken every time you have to,
Yeah, like,
it's
spend
part of
spend enough, but, enough where you're willing to spend that much 3 times a year?
just out of curiosity, do you know where you guys are getting your linens and the towels
We've
from?
we've experimented, currently have some California design done,
Yeah.
which loving, trying that because 'cause I've heard, through this industry, people love that, and I'm excited about that.
What about one product that always sparks joy?
For me, that is art. In my own places and when I go into other rentals, I loved with Minoan. I was able to purchase some really great art through our house, some pieces that would have been out of my budget, but I was able to get. And then along with those, local art. So I think that's an area you can really stand out. Art is like conversation pieces. I've had people try to like buy the art from my place versus getting your standard or Target elk, the one everyone has. I think
Yeah.
that's an area where you can, be unique. And I honestly I have 2 pieces. It's a local artist. His name is Dolan Geinman. And I kind of designed my whole place like around those pieces, like
Wow.
colors and all of that. So I think art to me, it definitely sparks joy.
Okay, is one forever buy.
So, this isn't a Minoan product, maybe it can be,
That's
but
okay. No, this is good. We'll send a referral over.
yeah, I get it off of Amazon, but it's a shower spray, so it's like a eucalyptus shower spray,
Whoa.
and I get a lot of feedback on it. So, I just keep it in my shower and, you just, like, spray it a couple times, and it's just this, like, amazing scent. I think I've, like, found it at a spa I went to one time, but it's sort of like my DB Den trademark a little bit, and, the hope is people remember it, they buy it, they're like, "Oh my gosh," they gift it, and, like, "I got this at this
Yeah.
rental." So, it's expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I think a theme you've captured here that I think is part of your success is just the focus on the sensory, the feeling, the smelling, the touching.
Mm.
that is
Mhm.
ultimately how we as humans, like, perceive the world around us, and I think,
Mhm.
um, it's so clear just from the way you talk that, like, you're really thoughtful about each of those, like, sensory element making, your guests feel a certain way, and I think that really shines through. We were glad to play a small part in that journey, but a big part of why we exist is to help hosts create these types of experiences, with a little less friction, making it a little bit
Yeah.
easier, stretching the budget a little bit further, making the
Mhm.
coordination a little bit easier, so, um
Yeah. Well, you guys are amazing. I recommend you to any new host, and, I continuously hop on the website, and you guys are all I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's new brand." So, I will continue to be a frequent customer.